Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're making a children's art easel. Well, although I said this is a child's easel, this project is very adjustable and very modifiable to be used for an adult. Anyone that has use of an artist's easel, whether for painting, drawing, or whatever. But for the focus today, I'll be focusing on for the children. Guys, this is a fairly simple project, and it all starts off with just a little bit of 3/4 inch thick solid stock. We will start off this project by making the legs of the easel, and what I have here are 8 pieces of 3/4 inch thick maple. They measure 2 inches wide and 29 inches long. And the first thing we need to do is a little bit of layout on these pieces. Well, the layout to start with on all 8 pieces is identical. So from the end, we will place a mark at 1 inch, and as well, we will place a center line at 1 inch. And from there, we will draw right here at the end of each board a 2-inch diameter circle or a 1-inch radius, and that will round off our board. So we are going to place this radius on each one of our boards on both ends. With the ends marked on all of our 8 pieces, we need to turn our attention to the top of our legs. So for that, we will place the next marks on 4 of our pieces. So at one end, we already have a mark here at 1 inch in, and that will be one of our adjustment holes. You then want to place another mark 6 inches up from that. So at 7 inches from the end of your board, we will place a mark, and you want to be as accurate as you can be. What we will do is mark these holes, because that's what they're going to end up being, on 4 of our pieces at one end of our board, and then we can head over to the drill press. So we have a few holes to drill that we have just marked, and the first thing we want to do is at our mark here, 7 inches in from the board, we want to drill a 3/4 inch hole that's 1/16 of an inch deep. We will drill it here as well in our one end here, 6 inches away from it. Now, in order to drill these holes and make everything the same, I've set my fence so that the center of the bit will strike in the center of the board. That'll go a long way to keeping your holes centered. So from here, with those drilled, you'll drill them in all 4 of your upper pieces. We will now change our bit to a 5/16 diameter and drill a 5/16 diameter through hole at both of these locations. And for now, that's all we want to do with these top pieces. We're going to come back to them in just a bit, but we want to turn our attention now to our other 4 pieces, which will be the bottom legs. So it's now time to mark for our adjustment holes. So what we will do is our first hole will be 1 inch in from the end, and then they will be spaced 3 inches apart all the way along. And accuracy is important here, guys. So just keep that in mind. So 7, 10, 13, and 16 inches. Right there. That will give us a total of 6 adjustment holes. Okay, so we will place a mark on each of our boards at those locations, 3 inches apart, and then we will head over to the drill press, and at each one of those locations, we will drill a 9/32 diameter hole. So that will be all the holes that are drilled in our lower leg pieces. There is one that I forgot to mention for our top pieces, and just like we did here with the 3/4 inch hole and the 5/16 hole, we need to do the exact same thing up here. I forgot about it until now. I wish I would have remembered while I had the setup done, but no big deal. That's one of the joys of woodworking, is we get to set our equipment up multiple times when the silly woodworker forgets to do something. So We will get that drilled in all 4 of our upper pieces, and at that point we'll turn our attention to shaping the profiles here on the end of each of our pieces. So for the end profiles on each of our pieces, we're just going to lop off the excess over at the bandsaw. Once we get that done, we'll do our final shaping at the belt sander. From there, I want to take it over to the router table, and I'm going to put a 1/8 inch round over on both sides all the way around all 8 of our pieces. Well, I've given all of our pieces a good sanding, and now in our top pieces, at each of these locations where we've drilled these holes, we are going to use a whackometer and drive in some threaded inserts. These are 1/4 thread. Just like that. So we will drive these in at all the locations, and then that is these upper pieces for now pretty much done. We can put them aside. So now the legs for the most part are pretty much complete. The only thing that I did extra was in each one of these adjustment holes, I drilled a countersink. That was just to soften that edge. I didn't want to give a hole for a young one to stick their finger in and cut themselves on a sharp edge. So that's optional. If you want to do that, you can do it. So now what I've done is I've cut these top braces, and these are made from 1/2 inch thick walnut. I have angled both sides at 11 degrees, and the larger ones here, which are our main braces, these ones at the longest points are 6 13/16 of an inch. And these smaller ones, which will be our interior pieces, these are 2 3/4 at their longest point. And both of them, or all of them I should say, are 3 inches wide. So you're going to need 2 of each. You can put the smaller ones aside because we need to do some drilling on these pieces. So what we're going to do is 1 inch up, or 1 inch in I should say, from either edge. We're going to draw a line there. Same on the opposite side, 1 inch in, we'll draw a line, and then 2 inches up from the bottom on that line, we are going to drill a 9/32 diameter hole, and we'll do that on both of our larger pieces. And just to make these a little cleaner, we're going to round off each one of our corners here using a 1 inch diameter circle template. And then once we get that marked, I'm just going to cut it over at the scroll saw, and I'll show you what to do next. So I've given both of our pieces a good sanding, and on the outer edge I have put the 1/8 round over. So now on the inner edge, what we want to do is take 2 of our pieces, our leg top pieces. We're going to take a 1/4 by 1 inch screw along with a 1/4 inch washer, and we're going to attach this to our leg, or our leg to our bracket rather. Just lightly, you don't have to crank on it. And then we'll get a second one on there. And our legs will line up with the outer edge of our bracket. And what we want to do, this is going to give us our positioning. So we can now take our centerpiece, we will place it right in the middle here, lining it up so that it's flush and that it lines up with our leg pieces. And with that in place like that, we can glue it onto the back of our bracket. It's basically, the legs will show us exactly where to put it. So get this glued in place, be careful of squeeze out. Once you get it clamped, I would take these legs off so that they don't accidentally get glued in place. So get these brackets glued together, and then we can move on to the next step of our build. So at this point, while we're waiting for those upper brackets to dry, you can put your legs together. Now, I can't tell you the height, but it is adjustable from this height right here, and that, let me just tell you here, that will put the top of the easel at about 3 feet 4 inches. So it's adjustable from about 3 feet 4 inches all the way to, one moment, about 4 feet 2 inches. So you got quite a bit of adjustment there. I'm going to put mine about the mid-range here. And so you just want to pick whichever holes you're going to use. Because these holes are 3 inches apart and our bottom ones are 6 inches, that gives for a lot of room for adjustment, and they should line up. You can adjust it by 3 inches each way until you get the height that you want. So I'm going to use some 1/4-20 hardware, probably 1/4-20 by 1.5 inches, and I'm just going to get these legs screwed together. And at this point you should have 2 assemblies that look like this being the outside, and if we turn this around, there's our bracket there on the inside. That just keeps it from folding in. It will not keep it from folding out. Truth be told, it's more of just a support thing as it is structural. Either way, those are the 2 legs. We're going to end up taking those apart afterwards. I just wanted to show you what they should look like at this point. And what we need to do now is we need to concentrate on our boards here that the child is going to write on. So for our drawing boards, I have 2 1/4-inch thick pieces of hardboard. They measure 20.5 inches wide and 23.5 inches long. We need to drill some mounting holes. So 3/8 of an inch in from either side, we're just going to place a mark, and then 2 inches down, we will place another mark. And at this point, in all 4 corners, we are going to drill a 9/32 diameter hole. So I've just got this can of wax. It is a 3-inch diameter, and I'm just going to trace it on each one of our 4 corners of both of our boards just to soften up the edge. And we'll just cut it roughly at the bandsaw and then shape it at the belt sander, just like we did the legs of our easel. Well, with our drawing board shaped, we now need a way to mount them. So what I have here, these are all of the top pieces of our legs. I've taken our easel apart and I have marked in the center of our 3/4 on the front face of all of our pieces. I have marked a hole here 2 inches down from the top, and then 19.5 inches down from that I have also marked a hole. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill some 1 1/8 depth holes that will accommodate some brass threaded inserts. These particular inserts take a 3/8 diameter hole. So what I will do is I will drill all these holes, insert all of my brass inserts, and then I'll show you what the easel looks like at this point with the boards mounted on it. And as long as you measure carefully, you should have something that looks like this. At this point now, what we need is a spreader bar here, because although it cannot collapse because of our center wedges, it can fall out this way. So we need a spreader bar across here to keep it from unfolding and collapsing that way. So let me show you what I have in mind for that. Well, for our spreader bar, I have removed our lower legs, and on the inner side here of all of our upper legs, 2.5 inches up from the bottom and centered, what I'm going to do is right there on the inside edges, I am going to counterbore a 7/8 diameter hole that is 5/16 of an inch deep. Once I get that done, I will drill a 9/32 inch diameter hole right through all 4 of our legs. And at this point, you should have something that looks like this. Now, this will be the holes that our hardware goes into to mount our cross braces. Now I've cut 2 cross braces out of walnut. They are 24 inches long. They are 1 1/4 inches wide and a 1/2 inch thick. Now what we want to do here is drill a 9/32 diameter hole 5 1/4 inches in from either edge and centered on our 1 1/4 inch side. You can double check your measurements and make sure you need 13.5 inches from center to center on these holes. Well, sometimes when you have an idea in your mind and you execute it, it doesn't quite work out as you planned, and that's what has happened here. The measurements for the holes are exactly the same, and they're exactly as I thought they would be. However, the plan that I had for the next step doesn't work with these holes here. So what I've done is, just like we did in our leg pieces, I have counterbored here a 3/4 inch diameter hole and then a 5/16 diameter through hole at those locations on these cross braces, and that will be for a threaded insert, and I will hammer those in. I have also rounded off each end with an 1 1/4 inch circle template, and on the outside edge I have placed a 1/8 round over all the way around. So let me get this thing put together at this point, and I'll show you what it should look like, and then we can move on to the art supply trays. Okay, well, something else I'd like to point out, I accidentally counterbored these on the wrong side. The counterbore should be on the outside of your upper leg pieces, not the inside. Luckily, it's 3/4 thick. I have enough material that I can just redo the counterbore on this side, and it's not that big of a deal. But something to keep in mind if you're making this project, you want to put the counterbore on the outside, and the reason for that is because the hardware that holds this here, that holds this cross brace, will be hidden between these 2 pieces and sunk into this upper leg. The reason I wanted it like that is so that you could change the adjustment without having to take everything apart. You can still change the height adjustment, but not have to disassemble your entire easel. So I wanted this independent of this outer leg. So that's just something to keep in mind. So at this point in time, you should have something that looks like this, or something like this. And as I said, we're going to turn our attention to the art supply frames. And what I have here is some walnut that is cut that will produce 2 trays that are going to be 5 inches, 5 inches by 18.5. So these are going to be box jointed. They are actually 2 1/4 inches high. I have done multiple videos on using the INCRA iBox jig. I don't think we need another demonstration, but I will put the link to it in the description if you're interested in how to use the finger jointing jig to make these boxes. So I'm going to do all of this work here, and once I get these boxes pretty much made, I'm going to come back and see you. So I've finished the art supply trays, and they are basically a finger jointed box that are 5 inches wide. They're 2 1/4 inches deep, and they are 18.5 inches long. And what I've done is I've drilled a hole, a 9/32 hole right in the center here, and I've also placed an 1 1/4 inch dado, I don't know if you can see that, but right across the width of our pieces. And these will just get slid onto our spreader bar here. It's a little snug, but that's good. That's the way I want it. Just like that. And once I'm happy with the positioning, I'm going to mark those holes. I'm going to drill into our spreader bar for a threaded insert, and then I can use a short 1/4 bolt from the inside to bolt it in place. Now that is pretty secure there as it is, even without the bolt, but honestly, I don't want it coming out, so I'd rather place the bolt as an extra security measure. Okay, so with that being done, I'm going to give this a sanding, and then when I get this mounted up, I'll come back and see you. Well, the next 2 pieces that I've made are some 1/2 inch thick walnut. They're 1 3/4 of an inch wide and 21 inches long. And what they will be is they will be this top bar which will hold paper for the child to draw on. And I'm just going to use a couple of shop-made jig knobs to hold them in place here in these 1/4 inserts. So we will make one of these for each side of our easel, and then we can move on to the paper holding bar. So the last thing is the paper bar, and I have here a piece of 1.5" diameter dowel. I have drilled some 9/32 diameter holes right through our side brackets here and through our center support pieces, and I have drilled out the centers of our dowel for a threaded insert, and that will allow us to attach our paper roll here and hold a roll of paper up to 5.5 inches in diameter so that the child can pull it down and make their creations. Now, this bar doesn't have the inserts in it just yet. I ran out, but I've ordered some more and they should be here in a couple days. And that, boys and girls, is essentially our children's easel. And there you have it. A children's easel. Guys, this project is dead solid. This thing is heavy, this thing is solid, and this thing is going to last through generations of children. Both the children that you make it for, and I would go so far as to say those children's children down the road. This is one of those projects that gets handed down through the generations, and this thing is going to be around long after I'm gone. Now, there were some changes here that I've done to mine. I don't want to just leave those hardboard panels for the drawing surfaces. So what I did to mine, which is a little different, optional, you can do it to yours if you like, but one of them I have primed and then painted with chalkboard paint. If you remember a while back on the show, I made little miniature chalkboards, and I had leftover chalkboard paint. So I turned it into a chalkboard for the child to draw on. As well, on the opposite side, on the other piece of hardboard, what I've done is I've primed it and painted it white, and then I have given it kind of a wash coat of clear epoxy, 2-part epoxy. And what that has created, like you've seen me do here on the show before, I created a whiteboard. So on the opposite side, the child has a whiteboard that they can write on and doodle and then just erase it with their whiteboard markers and be done with it. But in the same context, they can pull the paper down on the front and draw whatever picture they want. Now guys, feel free to modify this project any way that you like. It doesn't have to be maple and walnut. I mean, I made that because that's just me. But you can make it however you like. Feel free to mix it up. You know, use mahogany, use pine. Who cares what you use as long as you make one of these for your young ones. It does several things. It gets them away from the electronics. It boosts their creativity by letting them express themselves through art. And it gives them somewhere to display their masterpieces as well, so that you can come in and they can give you a little art show. Why not? Support their children and their imagination, guys, because those little people, those are our future. And as long as you invest in them by making projects like this, or even the toys that I provide you here on the show, anything, get the children involved, invest in your children, and you are investing in your future. This is an awesome project. You got to give this one a try. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Truth be told, I'm sure you know this, I made this one for my granddaughter, and she absolutely loves it. She really loves to draw, she loves to color, and this easel is going to go a long way to helping her develop those skills. So I'm more than happy to make it for her. If you haven't already, guys, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. You click that bell and then you won't miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the project. I really hope you're going to try this for yourself and inspire your little ones. And more importantly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.